Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is your short take. We're just going to talk about the very obvious differences between Donald Trump, the Republican Party, and Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. We're going to talk a little bit about the documents. It is not the same thing, and those trying to make it the same thing are creating a false equivalence. So right now, I'm going to turn this over to Dave.
There are two things I want to talk about. Number one, Deb and I did a show on Joe Biden's embellishments in the past on his, you want to call them lies? Okay. It's puffery. He's trying to puff up his resume during his campaigning seasons. He tells tall tales. He's debunked it. He fully admits it or says he was joking or whatever. He got hit back in 1987 for plagiarizing a speech, and he had to drop out of the presidency campaign, his campaign for the presidency. People know what he's doing. They don't take it seriously, and he's not harming anybody other than he makes it very difficult to investigate real liars like George Santos. This drove me crazy back then when we were hitting the Democrats. It still drives me crazy because he's not really doing any harm other than hitting it. He's hurting his own reputation when he does it.
Ammunition. That's what he's doing.
That's what he's doing.
And let me just say this. If that had been a Republican in 1987, he'd have still run. You know what? I'm sorry. The Republicans, at least the Democrats, come clean and hold their party accountable. The Republicans don't hold anybody accountable. They don't. Right now, you have Kevin McCarthy literally kissing Donald Trump's boots still to this day. And he basically sold out his party and the American people to get the speaker's chair. He sold his fucking soul to Satan, as far as I'm concerned.
Sidney Powell basically gave the Biden argument that nobody really believes what she's saying anyway with the Kraken argument, but they did, number one. And number two, she gave ammunition to start a coup within this country. All right. It's completely different. Biden talking about, being a coal miner son or whatever, or, his grades when he was in college. At least he went to college, by the way, as opposed to George Santos. Now let's talk about George Santos for a minute and Trump for a minute. George Santos, there are claims that he has stolen the identities of people, that he has defrauded people, that he has stolen money in Brazil, okay, that he has defrauded tax fraud and all sorts of things. That is physical harm.
He also took $300,000 from Russian oligarchs. He has the latest allegation is that he appeared at a Stop the Steal rally with a Burberry tie he stole from a roommate. It's never, is that a big deal? No, it's not a big deal, but my God, this man's laundry list of lies is outrageous. It really is. And that's just the smallest of the lies.
The worst that I could come up with in terms of Biden was when Biden was in an accident with his wife and daughter and sons, and his wife and daughter were killed. And he accused the truck driver of being drunk when he was not. Now, that was survivor's grief. So that's completely different than starting a freaking coup. And like Donald Trump did with his lies, with the big lie that Biden stole the election.
He has not stopped that to this day.
Right. Number one. And number two, the covering up of the seriousness of COVID, which, by the way, Andrew Cuomo fudges the numbers too, but it wasn't as bad, number one. And number two, he resigned. Has Trump resigned? No. Has DeSantis resigned? No, he hasn't.
No.
Now,
fudge the numbers too.
In terms of the documents, Biden has around 16 documents at this point. If he was trying to pull anything, he would not have said anything. He disclosed them. He had a search done. All right. Allow the investigators to do their investigation. There are design because he didn't want any, semblance of impropriety. Now you have the Republican House just frothing at the mouth because apparently some of these documents, they are about the UK, they're about the Iran, and they are about the Ukraine. They're frothing at the mouth over the Ukraine thing. And I don't know which documents were found where or whatever, but some were found at a house where Hunter stayed. So, of course, if any of those documents were Ukrainian documents, there has to be a thorough search. Joe Biden voluntarily gave these documents back when the DOJ, the archives, they weren't even looking for them. They didn't even know they weren't there. Presidents have taken documents home before. This is part of their work. Okay, in order to prove or show that Joe Biden should be convicted, you have to show that he would profit from them, or that there would be harm to the American people if he took these documents home and kept them there. This was a blunder, no doubt about it. And he's hurting the Democratic Party by doing it, but he did the right thing by he called himself out. There are calls they're saying, oh, what was he doing? Now he's as bad as Trump. He's not.
We're talking about Trump, over 160 documents, 60 of them highly classified, other nations' nuclear secrets. We're talking about documents where he ignored subpoenas from the archives for months rather than turn them over, had people shift them from location to location to avoid having to turn them over, and then obstructing everything. I'm sorry, folks. This is a false equivalence. Let them froth at the mouth. As Chuck Schumer said, Merrick Garland did the right thing. And Merrick Garland, by the way, appointed a Trump legal eagle to investigate these documents, Biden documents. So let's all stop it. Let the investigation play out, just as Donald Trump's investigation will play out.
Right.
And whatever happens, happens. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is not anywhere near the same thing. Donald Trump has tried to obstruct every opportunity he had to turn it over. He refused. And then he tried to obstruct having to give those documents back. With Donald Trump, it isn't so much about the documents. It's about the obstruction.
Yes. It's not about, yep.
But having other nations' nuclear secrets and thinking that they're yours to take home, that's a vastly different story.
We have plenty of sources on this. There's stuff everywhere. This is not about partisan politics. This is about the way things are done, protocol.
And I believe we need to change some of that.
We do need to change some of that.
Tighten up the documents. We need to tighten that all up. And there is actually an editorial that we will put in here where they're calling for them to change the way secret documents are handled, because there are too many secrets now. It's
a matter of overclassification also. If anyone has ever gone into WikiLeaks, some of that is highly redacted, some of it's classified, but some of them are just news clippings. We don't know what this stuff is. There's an article in the Bulwark that's saying some of this could be news articles and it could be a knock list. Right. A list of operatives. So it's like, we don't know what this is, but to know what a general idea of what these things are about, that tells me it's not as dangerous and secretive as anybody thinks, but you don't know yet. That's why everyone needs to chill and see what comes of it. And by the way, I want to say one more thing, even though we might go over 10. Jared Kushner and documents sent to a Saudi prince, okay? And then soon thereafter, all of a sudden, this is about this Saudi prince's enemies. All of a sudden, they're being tortured and killed.
Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner, okay?
Turn those documents over to a Saudi prince. Understand what we're saying here. This is not the same thing. This is an article that we will put in here that appeared in the Daily Mail, and it's fairly extensive. So you need to take a look at that.
There is a difference.
Was with Donald Trump having documents to begin with. All right. So
we won't get into Valerie Plame. We won't get into Benghazi. There are different issues and different things at stake here. By the way, Hillary Clinton with Benghazi, I told Deb I wasn't going to get it started, but she said in being investigated for 11 hours.
She was questioned for 11 hours. She never took the fifth. She never refused to honor the subpoena. Stop it. Okay, folks, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are not the same.
And Valerie Plame, who called her out? Dick Cheney.
Well, Scooter Libby took the fall, but it was actually Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
And I'd like to mention the fact that Valerie Plame was working with operatives at the time, and there were a lot of people that she relied on for information who were actually murdered as a result of that outing. So we can't compare this here, okay?
We can't. So that's what we got on this one. It's different.
And by the way, you don't know because you shouldn't know at this time. This is
Right.
an investigation. You're not going to get answers on social media from people in the government. That's not the way this works. If they have a case, that would tip their case. There's no reason for you to know. When the investigation is done, you'll know.
We're not happy with Biden in these particular cases, but there is no malfeasance that we can see here. We're not being fanboys. We're not trying to protect him. He screwed up in these couple of instances, it looks like. But let them do their investigation.
We'll talk to you later, gang.